Welcome to Engineer Versus. This time we're going to be building a resume. This is part one. It's an outline, gives you an idea of where to start from. So first things first, let's take a look at some things. Let's go look over at where you might start out with a Word document. You can go into Google Docs or anything like that and pull something together. You can also search online for a lot of places for a simple template. Here in Microsoft Word, all we did was just pull together and say, okay, what do we have that's new? And sample templates. And look, in a resume, now you want to take some simple resume. You don't want this one because that's some goofy stuff on the side. You want it to be simple. You don't need an equity resume like this with some more bars at the top and so on. You want it to be nice and easy and simple. The one that I took was the executive resume. So that's where we're starting from. You throw your name on top, your contact information, address, and then he starts filling out your skills and objectives and so on. Again, avoid some of these extra things. If you want to get noticed, if you think that's going to help, it's not. It's going to get you noticed and put you filed away. In other words, tossed out pretty quickly. So it'll get you noticed, all right, but in the wrong way. The thing is, even with graphic artist firms and so on, you might think it's clever or that it's neat to put some of your work on your resume like that. Don't do it. Your resume is about being as corporate as you can, as clean as you can, and efficient that way. So you can see here, put your name at the top, put your email, and something that has your name, not like your online persona name or anything like that, and something at gmail.com, or if you have your own website, use that instead. And the simpler you can make it, the better, so it looks clean and professional. Your address, include your entire address. Don't skip, say, like an apartment number or anything like that. Your address is where people are going to be contacting you to send you a letter to say that, yeah, we got your resume. Yes, we're interested in you. Even if they don't send it via email, they might send something to you officially at your address. All right, and you don't want to miss that. Type in your phone number here. This should be your regular phone number, and your phone number should have voicemail on it. So if they're calling you and they want you to come in, that might be the better communication for some employers besides email. They would rather call you. So make sure that your voicemail is also professional. Say your name, say the number, and please leave a brief message. That's all it has to be. It doesn't need to be complicated, but it needs to be clear and understandable. Also, your phone number should probably be able to accept texts. Some employers, especially the savvy ones that are doing things, are going to say, hey, I'm talking to you right now, but let me text you the address where you need to go. Why? Because that is the easiest thing for the employer, whoever you're working with. And what you want to do is make it easy on them and be able to communicate that with them in any means possible, whether it's email, address, phone number. Some people say put a website here if you've got one. Well, unless it's professional or it's just your resume that you might see here, don't add your website. It'll be distracting if you go to a link and there you are on your latest fishing trip or back at school or someplace else that you don't really necessarily want to share with everyone on the planet, and a potential employer doesn't want to get distracted by that either. They'll realize that that's too much information that you're sharing, even though they might learn about that and say, hey, this really endears me to you and what you can do here. We would really like you to be family here. I would say, unless it's professional, keep it all business and don't put it on here. Um, all right, so the other things in here, objectives. If you have a cover page or cover letter, which in most cases you might, if you're submitting this resume online to say in a form online, you might want to include the quick objectives. And especially if you're kind of stretching to fill out this entire page, you might see that this is daunting and say, oh my goodness, how do I fill all this out? I'm just a high school graduate. I just graduated college, or I'm just getting started on this. How do I even fill out all these things? Well, there are plenty of examples online, but the objectives is the first thing to go. So you notice we have four main things in here: the education, the experience that goes along with that. So the objectives here is just a single line, make it a full, complete sentence. If your objective is to obtain an internship, state that. State what internship you're after, what position you're after. If you're after a full-time job, name that job that you're after. Be be specific in what area you want to work in. You don't have to be specific with I want to be engineer level 2 at your particular firm. You don't need to do that. What instead you might want to say is I'm interested in your engineering division that is working with, say, plastics, or with your civil or structural engineering group, those kinds of things. And they might find an opening that might be suitable for you. Maybe they're not thinking of you in particular at the start, but you want to keep it open enough where they do. You don't want to say that, yes, I definitely want this particular job and I only do this thing. That's it. That's the only thing I want out of your company. That might work where you've definitely got an itch, but you might want to clarify that in your objectives and make it a little bit more broad if you can. I know it seems like I'm saying that do this, but don't do that. And it's hard to know which to follow in between. So make it broad, but yet don't be, not specific. So if you're figuring out what you need to do as far as an engineering topic along those lines, if you're a mechanical engineer, state that you're after a mechanical engineering position. Civil, you might want to stretch out and say that you're doing structural. Electrical, you might want to say that you're interested in electronics and those items as opposed to, say, power grid items. Education, make this clear. Your school name, be proud of it, even if it's, something that you might hear people deriding. So what if you went to DeVry? Be proud of that. State your completion date and state the month with your completion date and the type of degree. If it's a Bachelor of Science, state Bachelor of Science. You can use BS if you like, that's fine if you're running out of room, but state what your degree is in and that if you have an emphasis in that, if you got, say, an engineering degree, mechanical engineering degree, it's a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering, state all of that. And then put the degree type. If you have a specialty, you can add that on as well. And then any accomplishments that go along with your education. So if you got some awards or got an association or something like that, or you worked with a particular group that, wanted to award the school and you at the same in the same process, or you're part of a team that got an award, mention those things, especially if you have difficulty filling this out and you really need to tout your educational piece. Other accomplishments may include such as a research paper that was published or not even published, that you did a research paper that you did it on energy efficiency or how to make better concrete, whatever it might be. Experience, this is oftentimes where potential employers are going to jump to. They want to see that you've either worked in the setting that they're thinking of you for or that you have potential to. So if you're looking for an office job and you don't have really any office experience, you might want to look at listing that in a way that says, you know what, I know how to work in an office setting somehow. I know how to work with people. If you're in a field setting or someplace else, you might want to also state that you have some sort of people skills, that you know how to get along with all types of people in different situations. That's what office settings are about, or being in the field is about. You're going to have different scenarios, and they want to know that you're competent and that, okay, you're going to be calm, cool, and collected while you're on the job. You're not going to cause drama or anything else. So this experience should sort of state these things, but also state your accomplishments in what you've done. List the company name, the company address, and if they have a website, you might want to list that too. So that's in case people don't know what the site is. And be clear, okay? So you might not know what the company is, or you might say, oh, it's HP. Well, HP might stand for Hensel Phelps instead of, say, Hewlett Packard. Be clear about that. So put the company name in there clearly, and then your job title there, when you started and your ending, and your job responsibilities. Add all of those items in there and start typing those out. Your job experience should state this for multiple types. So if you have multiple types, you might want to put that in, and you can just list that out. So if you're struggling to sort of fill this in and say you only have 2 jobs that you might have put them in the same way. And if they're internships, what you want to do is have a standard sort of way that this looks. So if your company name is listed in one and then the other, you want them to stand out equally, even though you might have done an internship for, say, 3 months, and then your next experience was a full-time job for a year. You want them to sort of be equated and let the dates tell the story. Your job responsibilities, I'll talk about that in the next section, but that's going to be important as well, what you list there. Skills, what I see often in skills section is, oh, I know Microsoft Office Suite. Well, that can get you in a little bit of hot water. If you know Microsoft Project, you might be asked to do Microsoft Project all day. And if you only know Word and Excel and those kinds of things, don't state that you know the whole suite unless you really do. It's okay to list each one separately. And not only that, put maybe some experience that you might have had doing it if you're struggling to get enough words in here, enough filler, I'll call it. And you might want to also list other skills that you might not think that you know, might be important. Some of the basics, such as, yes, I can drive a car, yes, I can do this or that. Don't list those. But if you have skills that say might stand out, you might want to list that as well. So if you do know Microsoft, you do know Adobe products, list those as far as software products, especially depending on what job you're looking for. But if you're looking for something specific, as far as say an engineering job, you might want to list what specific items you know. So if you know, for instance, that, hey, I'm doing civil engineering and I've done bridge work, and bridge work, we're using a certain program for that, list it. If you're doing earthwork, maybe you have an earthwork program that you want to list there as well. If you've touched it and know a bit about it, you might want to state that it's a basic skill level or a beginner skill level. Don't embellish. Don't say that you have advanced skills work whenever you don't. That's the biggest thing that you'll get called out on. If you're called and you step into their office and they say, hey, I see here that you've listed AutoCAD as one of your skills. Could you show me, how you might say format or scale differently this particular drawing, or set this up, or do a little bit of this or that on a drawing? Or if you have Excel skills, you might be called out to do that as well. How would you set up something with a lot of data? So you might want to be aware of that. And if employers hire you, if they ask you to come in and then you can't do what's on your resume, that's going to be a ding, not necessarily on your job, but it's going to hurt you as far as your advancement. They'll realize that you kind of embellished your resume in order to get in the door, and we're hoping to learn on the job, but you really stated that as being already accomplished. What you want to do is make sure it's already done before you step through the door. Okay, enough warning on the skills. Once you start filling all these items in, you might see, say, other proficiencies or other things that you might want to list. So you might want to just say, education and professional associations. So perhaps those go together where you put your education as one item, and then right after that you start to list other professional associations, and you list the associations here. So if you're part of, say, a fire protection group and you went to school for fire protection engineering and you got the degree and the date, including the month, and you put some accomplishments that went with that, but you're also part of, say, the National Fire Protection Group or the local student chapter, or that you were the secretary of a group, those kinds of professional associations. So that also works if you're working on a high school resume. You can also snap to that and say, okay, I can really start to list some of the things that work out there. And between those things, you should really start to see this page start to fill up. And the idea is get this page to be about 2-3 pages. Why? Because once you get it to that point, then you can start cutting things down. That way you know what's going to be important versus what's not important, especially in the bigger picture as you read through it over and over again. All right, more to come in